for us humans, we get to decide what we want. We get to decide what career path we want to head down. We get to decide if we want to live up to all of our potential or just be average. Every other human life form does what they are made to do to the fullest of their ability, except humans. Humans, we tend to limit ourselves. We tend to hold ourselves back. We tend to prevent ourselves from growing. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Walk 12 podcast. If you're tuning in on YouTube or any of the podcast directories, make sure to do yourself one teeny tiny little favor and make sure to give us a follow because I don't want you to miss out on any of the amazing episodes I got coming on this year. Without further ado, in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about me going to Quantum Leap Summit, my second time going. This year, I went as a Quantum Leap instructor instead of just a regular attendee. Got to spend a day with a billionaire again and learn. And this time, took a lot of notes, and I should have my first time around just reviewed my notebook, but I'm about to share the best success principles I learned from, as I said, spending a day with a billionaire and from my time at the summit. It just happened this past weekend from the day I'm recording, and so I got my notebook here with me for those of you guys watching, for those of you guys that are just listening. I'm just gonna be reading off of it and just giving my thoughts on everything that I wrote down. So right, boom. To be human means to have choice. Choice differentiates humans from all other creatures. And so I wrote this down because it stuck with me. He was saying this as he was writing stuff down, as he was presenting, I was writing stuff down. Whatever stuck with me. And so this one stuck with me because in life, we get to decide how we live life. And the story that Gary was talking about, he was like, there was his friend had a dog, and his dog ended up passing away, whatever. And the dog left his play station or play pen or whatever, where he used to keep the dog, super messy. And how the dog used to have a door to go outside on his own and to come back on his own, but their backyard was fenced in, so the dog couldn't escape. But he can go outside in the backyard. He would always play around, and there would always be like random sticks around and stuff like that. And he was sharing the story how, like, his takeaway was how dogs can't decide how they get to live. They have these natural instincts, like they're dogs. They're gonna live like dogs always. Right? Same thing for cats. I have a cat named Dexter. Dexter is as a cat can be. The only thing he doesn't really do, he doesn't meow often, but he goes outside, he hunts mice and birds, he brings them inside sometimes dead, sometimes still alive. He licks himself all the time, takes a bunch of naps. He got a little bit of sass to him. Like even today, he was like, I was combing him with his brush, and or combing him with his comb, whatever, I don't know. And he was he after a while he just started like trying to swipe at me and nibble at me so I can stop. But he's as a cat can be. Every day is almost exactly the same day for him. He has his routine and he'll probably live the rest of his life like that. He's a cat. He can't do anything about it. But for us humans, we get to decide what we want. We get to decide what career path we want to head down. We get to decide if we want to live up to all of our potential or just be average. Every other human life form does what they are made to do to the fullest of their abilities, except humans. Humans, we tend to limit ourselves. We tend to hold ourselves back. We tend to prevent ourselves from growing. And we always have a choice. We get to choose how we want to live this life. So that's why this one stuck with me. Another thing that Gary was talking about is how people have lived before you. Build off of their knowledge instead of your own. You always hear like, don't reinvent the wheel, which is like 100% true. If there's people who have figured it out, why not learn from them? Because they already learned a thing or two. And you may have to, like, and especially being a young entrepreneur, like there's people who have been in business 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Some of these people, they have a lot of experience. They've seen the market shifts. They've seen the ups and downs of business. They've probably gone close to bankrupt or lost a lot of money or maxed out credit cards before. They've probably managed and hired a bunch of teams. They probably fired teams, right? They've probably done so much more. And so if you can find these people who have already done what you want to do and just get all their wisdom and start from there, now you're not starting from ground zero. You're starting from experience. Now the experience isn't your experience, but it's experience nevertheless. You didn't have to take to spend the time, energy, and effort it took them to get that experience. You can just learn from whoever, let's say a mentor, and all that experience that they gained, now they transfer over to you. without you having to do anything except for be a good listener and maybe take some notes so you can remember. He also goes on to talk about like when someone gives you a playbook, don't think about it, just do it. Like if the playbook is proven and it works and if shown success in the path, just do it. Do not reinvent the wheel. And then he also talked about thinking big and living small. This one is a little different. So think big, live small. I wrote down. He said, live in the moment, but for the future. Right? We have to have these big visions, right? We have to have these big ideas, these big goals, these big our purpose for living on this earth, right? I want to help 1 million trillion entrepreneurs, or I want to help young adults build a wealthy, abundant life. Whatever it may be, we have to have these big visions for how we want to impact the world, but we don't live our world in the 10,000 foot view. We live on ground level, right? So we can have these big ideas in the sky as to what we want to do with our business, what we want to do with all the time we have while we're still here. But we don't live we don't live in that vision, right? We live in reality. And so you have to be able to have these big visions so that you know where you're going, but then be able to live in the day to day so you can actually get there, if you get what I'm saying. Another thing that Gary talked about is don't put a price on your integrity. That one really resonated with me. Like a lot of people think when it comes to like the word selling your soul, that is some ritualistic or spiritual thing, which it could be, but selling your soul is also like a metaphoric term. It means like going against what your better judgment and what you know is right, going against your principles, your values, going against your integrity, right? Going against the core beliefs that you have in order to achieve something that you probably wouldn't have otherwise, or achieve something faster than you otherwise would have, or just achieve something in general, honestly. And so, as you going against your better judgment as to what you know is right and wrong, or good and evil, in order to obtain something. And a lot of times, people they'll do a lot for some money. They'll do a whole lot of stuff for some money. And so Gary talks about like don't put a price on your integrity. That's what he's referring to. And when I went back 2 years ago, I still remember this to this day. He said, I don't do what I do because I'm Gary Keller. I'm Gary Keller because I do what I do. And that really stuck with me because it just shows like you don't have to wait until you're successful or some big shot or a 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever figure entrepreneur. Like be you from when you're down bad and broken starting off on a journey all the way up until when you're making hundreds of billions of trillions of dollars, right? And everywhere in between. Be you through and through. Don't put as I said, don't put a price on your integrity. So that was the first set of notes that I really took. Now I'm just gonna keep on going through this book and keep on writing stuff down. Um, let's see. So Gary, one of the things that Gary talks about is like how important it is to master something, right? He talks about don't settle for average. A lot of people, let's say you're going on a trip, right? Let's say you're going on a plane. You expect the pilot to fly perfectly and land perfectly. You expect the pilot to be experienced. You expect the pilot to practice his craft. You expect the pilot to be flawless. And yet, when you put something out into the world, do you hold that same standard for yourself? Hmm? Because a lot of time we expect everyone to be above and beyond in their own professions, but then you're just sitting around coasting by, okay with being average, okay with not doing the best that you can do, okay with not preparing, okay with just winging it. What if your pilot was just winging it and was learning on the job? Instantly, everyone will want to hop off. So, when it comes to whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's your job, whether it's your business, are you okay with like being average, or are you striving to master whatever it is that you do? And like in the topic of mastery, right? The people who get paid the most are the best at what they do. The top 10% of people make the most money in each of their profession. The top 5% probably even make even more. Like, right? There's the 80-20 rule, right? 20% of the people hold all the wealth, right? And of that 20%, 20% of that 20% holds all the wealth. And so it's like, if you want to be making a whole lot more money, if you can just strive to be the best that you can be and achieve like the top 5 percentile in whatever industry you're in, whether it's insurance, sales, real estate, whether you're working at a job, you're going to be undeniably good. And the better you get, the more people are going to want to make sure you only do what you're good at. For example, why would a surgeon go check somebody in when he go deliver us, a world class surgeon go check people in when he could be out here saving lives doing operations? Makes no sense. Let the people do what they're best at so they can flourish. And as you keep on spending more time in your craft, you're gonna get even better. And so it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Where it's like you get really good at something, and people want you to do it more. And as you do it more, you get even better at it. And then people want you to do only that thing. And because you're spending all your time only doing that one task, you're becoming so much better, so much faster than everyone else. And then people will slowly but surely pay you more. All right. Then Gary started talking about the 3 stages of life, right? And he mentioned that life is not is a journey, not an event. Everyone tends to treat life as if life is just this one-time thing. Well, it's not a one-time thing. It's a continuous thing for as long as you're here. And he says you live your life over time, not at one time, right? Your life is the accumulation of all these experiences, all these memories, all these moments, right? Not one moment at a time, right? It's the accumulation of everything. And most people in the traditional way of thinking, right, they usually have this stage of life, which is usually anywhere from like firstborn all the way to 18, 21, sometimes maybe more depending on your profession, right? Where it's like the education stage, right? And this is like 0 all the way to your young adulthood, whatever that may be, into like maybe as far as your early 30s, which is the education stage where you're going to school, you're learning whatever. Then you have the work stage, which usually lasts up until 65. But the way most people are saving for retirement now, probably gonna be higher, right? So like 65, 70 ish. And then you have the retirement stage. That's how most people live their lives. Like once they're done with school, they start working. And then once they start working, they start retiring and playing around, having fun, right? But the way he talks about living life is he mentions that life is a continual work, learn, and play. So you should be continuously developing yourself, continuously learning about yourself, learning about things that are will help you grow and propel in your industry, and then you should be working on doing something that you love. And he says if you want to retire, it's because you're not doing what you love, right? He said if you get money and stop working, you will probably are only working for your money instead of working because you're truly fulfilled and doing what you're called here to do. And so, with the way the life that Gary talks about, he says that you should have time for learn, work, and play every week. And that should be a continuous thing. You're always learning because you're always growing, you're always developing yourself. There's always more to learn about yourself and about what you do so you can become better because he strongly believes to be committed to mastery. So there's always something to learn about. Then, of course, you have to work, right? If you don't work, you're not going to get paid, you're not going to make money. So you have to work and then you have to play because what good is all the work? What good is all the learning if you never get to enjoy any of it? So that's Gary's three-phase approach to life. And so you work, learn, and play throughout your whole life instead of learning, then finishing school and working until you're 65, and then finishing school and then finishing working and then play in your retirement. He talks about learning, working, and playing like on a day to day. Yeah, one of the questions that Gary brings up that made me think is like, how can you live life in such a way that everyone around you can live their best life as well? Like he talks about I forget what he was talking about, but pretty much, let's say you want to go on a trip and it was to some beautiful island, let's say Cabo, right? You want to take a trip to Cabo with all your friends, and let's say it's 5 of you guys. Now, let's say not all your friends, let's say you're the only entrepreneur. That means all your friends are working. They're going to have to request vacation days. And on top of that, they're going to have to make sure that they have the money to go, pay their tickets, pay the hotel, pay the food, pay for excursions, pay for everything. Not everyone may have it. So, like, how can you live your life in a way where, like, you are so successful, you're so well off that when times like that come, you can be like, no worries, I got you, right? Or let's say someone needed help to start their business, you can be like, no worries, I got you. Now, I'm not saying to go out and just get rich so you can just give away money and enable people. But I'm just saying, like, if how could you live a way where you're making so much money, not just to get by, not just to support yourself and your family, but like the people around you can also grow and flourish and thrive? How can you live a life like that? He talks about like, what do you want people's dying words to be about you? And he mentioned his story about he was with his mom, and for whatever reason he was recording and asking his mom about all the different people in the family, and she was saying her honest opinions about everyone in the family. And by the time Gary's mom got to his older sister, her last words about her sister was, she's selfish, before she passed away. The last thing that Gary's mom talked about before, I mean, the last thing Gary's mom said about his sister was that she's selfish. And so it's like, when you think about it, let's say you have 5 friends. Let's say they're all on their deathbed. What would you want them to say about you? What's your legacy? What do you want people to know you for? Is it because you're a successful entrepreneur, business owner, mogul, whatever, and you make tons of money? Or is it was it like, John was generous. Like, he was so loyal. He was so, smart. He was so helpful. But what are the things that you want people to remember you on and say about you when they're on their dying bed, on their deathbed, right? About to have their last breath. And then this kind of perfectly segues because Gary then talks about like the world can't help you if you don't know who you are. So you can't show up as the person you are that helps others if you don't know who you are and you don't know anything about yourself truly. If you don't do any reflection, any looking within. If you don't know who you are, you'll never be able to achieve mastery. You'll never be able to succeed at the level that you possibly could have if you did know yourself. And so learning yourself is an important, like, super important part. It's part of the journey. It's like, who are you? Why do you stand for what you stand for? What is your vision? What's your mission? All these other questions that kind of seem like super like grandiose and kind of like fluffy. Like, actually make a huge difference into like the direction that you end up taking in your trajectory. Another thing that really stuck with me, which is something that I learned first time around at QL, right, is the whole thought of first creation and second creation. And so Gary was pretty much saying that our whole like physical reality is just an afterthought. Everything that we experience in the day to day in reality are just the accumulations of our past thoughts. And so in order to change our future, we have to change what we're thinking now. And so he had this thing that said, right, thoughts become deeds. Spirit manifests in the flesh. Think and grow rich. As a man thinketh, so shall he be. Ideas before results. Belief become a reality. When you believe it, you'll see it. What you see inside is what you get outside. Mind over matter. What you can conceive, you can achieve. And he goes on on to say, like, if someone asks you what's the matter, you can ask them what's the mind. Because in fact, if you want your matter to matter, you must mind your mind. Which at first sounds like some dumb thing that a drunk uncle will tell you, like a family cookout. You know, the drunk uncle that be giving you advice. But like, if you want your matter to matter, you must mind your mind. Meaning, like, if you want whatever you're doing to actually matter, you got to know what's going on in your head. A lot of people are running on autopilot. A lot of people are running off their subconscious and don't even know what their subconscious is programming them. They don't know what's actually going on underneath the hood of their cars. And so they're just running pretty much without thinking, without putting much thought. And can you blame them? A lot of times people, they drive to work and it's the same route most of the time. So you're not thinking on the way to work, right? And then you get to work and let's say you're doing a job that is very each day is kind of like the same day. Maybe you do some different activities and different tasks, but you go in, you go to your office, whatever it may be, yada yada yada. So then each day kind of becomes routine, and then on top of that, then you go home, drive home. That becomes routine, and let's say you're someone that meal preps, then your life becomes even more routine, and so it's like a lot of times people are really just going on life and not really thinking much about anything. So it's like, as I said, if you want your matter to matter, you got to know what's going on in your head first. Because if you don't, you'll never be able to change what's going on. So reflect, right? Write down what's going on up there. think intentionally, be consciously and proactively thinking, and not just running on autopilot all the time. All right, boom. This next thing is a good one. Gary talked about the dilemma of success. Yeah, what's it called? The dilemma of success. Right. This is a really good one. Right. And this is gonna be a long episode. I'm sorry. I got a few more. I should probably break this up into 2 episodes, right? Because this is a lot. But the dilemma of success, the dilemma of desire and success. Here we go. We all have a desire to know. We all have a desire to have, and we all have a desire to do. And what ends up happening in life is no matter how much we know, we'll never know all there is to know. No matter how much we have, we'll never be able to achieve all that we, have all that we can have. And no matter how much we do, we'll never be able to do it all. And so we're very limited in what we can do with our time here, right? Even if we had almost infinite time, there would always almost never be someone who knows it all, has it all, and does it all. And so we have to be very intentional with what we actually do, know, and have. And what drives that is our choices and our priorities. And so you be maybe wanting to learn about, let's say, golfing and fishing and cooking and surfing and insert whatever it may be. And if none of those align with your choice and your priorities, you're not really being intentional with what you're learning. You just know a bunch of stuff that doesn't really matter. And that's going to take away from the stuff that you can actually really learn and grow from, and as well as like doing stuff. Let's say you're starting 4 different businesses. Most likely, none of them are going to work at the same time if you're the sole person doing them all. You can't do everything. And so you have to choose and prioritize what's most important and tackle those things, because it's almost impossible to be an Olympian and a Grammy winning artist and a Oscar nominee or whatever. All right, Oscar winning actor. Like, to be world class at anything, you have to you choose and prioritize. You can't do everything. And this is back to what Gary was talking about with mastery. It's like I said, he explained this stuff a lot better. My notes kind of suck, but long story short, we can't know, have, and do everything. And so we have to choose and prioritize what are the things that we want to actually know, do, and have. And so this is a nice little set of questions to think of, right? When you want to build a life with great purpose, the first thing to do is to become clear about your thoughts, words, and beliefs. This leads to the highest level of knowing. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions to get you guys thinking. So if you're listening, right, are you an intentional individual, or are you just an accidental tourist? Are you a determined determiner, or are you just a drifting drifter? Are you a meaningful specific, or are you a wandering generality? Are you making a life, or are you just making a living? I must repeat this one because this is a good one. Are you just making a life? Are you making a life, or are you just making a living? Think about that one. Are you following your own plan, or are you just a part of somebody else's? For everyone working a job, definitely think about this one. Are you following your own plan, or are you a part of somebody else's? Is the song in your head my way, or is it just dust in the wind? This one's another good one. Are you using your time to make your mark, or are you just marking time? Whew. Are you making time count, or are you just counting time? That's back to back. Is the theme of your life no time to kill, or is it just killing time? For all you guys who like to scroll on social media, is the theme of your life no time to kill, or are you just killing time? And then the final question is, are you living a life of purpose, or are you just living? These are some good questions to think about. Like, as I said, this is why I love going to QL. And definitely gonna have to go back next year. But sheesh, This is good stuff, right? And so back to what I said earlier about Gary saying like to be human means to have a choice, right? What he believes is that our first purpose in life is to seek the highest relationship possible with the omnipresent. In my case, God. Seek the highest possible relationship with God. This is our spiritual destiny, right? You believe whatever you believe, I believe in God, right? Our second purpose is in life is to bring additional meaning and purpose to our lives, and by doing so, take our spirituality to an even higher level. That is our physical destiny. And our spiritual and physical destinies are connected and together link up to take you to the highest human experience level possible, which sounds dope. So I think I want to end it on this last part right around here. I could keep going. There's so much content here. And like honestly, I don't fully remember all my notes and we skipped around a lot. But these are the 6 things to be, you know. Ooh, no, 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 no. I got some fire. I got some fire. Woo! I got some fire. I'm gonna end on this, right? Sheesh. Gary started talking about relationships, right? And this really made me think, right? So those of you guys don't know, I'm in a relationship. I've been in a relationship almost 3 years now, and I love hearing from like successful people relationship advice because it's like they were able to not only grow a business, which is like probably one of the hardest things on the planet to do, but also have a loving family. And I don't know everyone's thing behind closed door, right? So I'm not even gonna get into like whatever, like, oh, you never know what happens behind closed door. I'm just going based off what I can see. And from what I can see, it looks good, right? So I don't know what happens behind closed door, but like he's man made $1 billion and been married for the past like 50 years with the same person. So he definitely knows a thing or two about both. And so he asked this question, and it was a rhetorical question, but he said, do you marry the love of your life or do you make the person the love of your life? And that was like, damn, that's a good question. That's one of those questions that make you think, right? Do you marry the love of your life or do you make the person you marry the love of your life? And I like this question because like I do believe love is a choice, and to love someone, you have to make that choice daily, right? It's not going to be puppy love. It's not going to be that super, romantic, passionate, like honeymoon phase love for the entire relationship, right? If so, you guys are probably not being upfront with each other because people disagree, right? Unless you're dating like a yes person that just agrees with everything you say despite whatever they believe, right? But like to be human, as I said, we have choices, we have different opinions, we have different beliefs, right? There's no one who's gonna see the world 100% the same as us, and so if you're not having any arguments at all, any disagreements at all, I think it's just because your relationship isn't that close. Now that could be me just talking out, whatever. But all my boys that I was the closest with, the amount of times we almost got close to fighting is literally insane. Like Xbox Live parties, playing a random Fortnite game or whatever, Call of Duty, would somehow get personal. Now someone's talking about someone and like said something they shouldn't have said, and everyone's ready to brawl and fight, and then the next day is back to all love, right? I don't think superficial relationships. There's no arguments. Like I don't get in arguments at networking events. Why? I don't care about none of these people, but like with people that I'm closer to, because there's just so much more emotion, so much more care, so much more feelings. I feel like that love and like that honeymoon phase love doesn't last forever. And so the days that you do get into these arguments, you do get into these fights, what'll tend to happen, do you just say, all right, this is not the person for me, right? Or do you work out whatever you guys got going on? Now, also, I'm a big believer, me personally, like for me personally, as long as principles and morals aren't broken, for me, I think almost everything can be fixed. And now everyone's principles and morals could be different. But like for me, as long as my principles and my morals aren't broken, even though it may get me super mad and angry, I feel like it'd be worked out and talked through. But I really like this question, right? Do you marry the love of your life or make the person you love, make the person you marry the love of your life? And I think it's a little bit of both. I think personally, because like love is an active choice, but also it's like if I don't love someone, I'm not even gonna ask them to marry me. So I think it's a little bit of both. It's definitely a great question that made me think. And then he was asking about, and when you're in a relationship, don't ask, "Am I happy?" Ask, "Is she happy?" Right? Or is he happy? Because if you spend your entire relationship serving the other person, and that other person spends their entire relationship serving you, you guys will both be, you know, serving each other to the highest degree, and it'll be completely selfless. Because it talks about like you and your partner are supposed to be one, right? So it's like if you're serving them and they're serving you, like, and their job is to make you the happiest person ever. Your job is to make them, the happiest person ever. Then you guys are always going to be headed in the right direction because you're putting them before you and they're putting you before them. And so there's no one side, taking all the benefits. You guys are both serving each other to the highest level. And so I'm gonna leave you guys with that because that's a definitely a great place to leave it. It's, man, that question definitely made me think. Like, do you marry the love of your life or make the person you marry the love of your life? I said I think it's a little bit of both, right? I think it's a little bit of both. And as I said, I'm not a relationship expert, but I do know a thing or two about a thing or two, if I like to, if I do say so myself. So that's pretty much my biggest takeaways from Quantum Leap this year. It definitely was a great time. I'm looking forward to going back next year, right? And if you guys are interested in attending QL, make sure to definitely reach out to me. I'd love to explain to you. But that's all for this episode. The next one, at least in my next solo episode, I'm going to be talking about how to make the most out of conferences, how to go to conferences and actually come back with things that you can implement so that you're not just going wasting your money and then going back home and just took a few days out of your business and didn't really get anything from it. So that's going to be all for now. In the next episode, at least my next solo episode, I'm going to be talking about should you go to conferences and how to make the most of them.